once we finish up with the PowerPoint, we do a little fun stuff. As Kate mentioned, we're actually going to kind of put you on your toes and ask some tough questions that a seller might ask you when you're either in the interview with them or at the presentation with them. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you, pull up my screen. Okay, can everybody see that? All right, thanks, Newt. Okay, so here we go, the seller interview. Let's talk about that a little bit. Bear with me because the animations sometimes take me by surprise when I do this. I didn't create this slideshow, and it has some animations that I have to get used to. But so what are our objectives today? Objective today is to develop confidence and comfort at asking questions of the seller designed to do the following for us. We want to be able to build rapport with that seller. We want to learn about the property from the seller interview. We want to determine the seller's motivation and urgency. We want to learn about any past experiences they've had, because that could be a big clue for us on how we're going to mold our personalities to them. And also we of course want to uncover what their expectations from them that they'll have of us. So that's our objectives today, is to find out how we're going to build those things. So as you learned from Stacy, there are 5 components of the listing presentation. The first component is the seller interview. The second is the property tour. The third is that marketing presentation that you were preparing for with Stacy. And finally, 4, there's the pricing presentation, and finally the closing. So those are the 5 components that are basically in any listing presentation that you're going to do with a seller. So let's talk a little bit about the seller interview. This is the precursor to presenting any company programs and marketing materials. So before you launch into, showing all our amazing marketing tools, we're going to start here. We're going to start by asking these questions of the seller. It provides us the opportunity to address the benefits of representation. So during this time, we're going to talk a little bit about that and how there's benefits to that. And it gives us insights into the seller's motivation, needs, urgency, etc. So basically, the more we know when we're preparing for that listing presentation, the better it is. So where can a seller interview be conducted? I would say probably most often you're going to find you're doing the seller interview on the phone, especially in these times of COVID. You're not necessarily going to be meeting a potential seller at their for coffee, lunch, dinner, or cocktails. I mean, this is, like I said, precursor to the presentation. This is us just asking some questions. So more often than not, that's going to be on the phone. It could be at an open house. It could possibly be that you are at an open house and you get a visitor to that open house and they tell you they're looking to put their house on the market and it's down the street. So you might be right off the cuff there asking them some questions. So I will say that some of these questions that we're going to talk about should be part of your elevator speech to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, if you're sitting in the office and you're on the phone and you're calling the seller, you made an appointment with them to say, hey, I have a few questions I need to talk to you about. You're going to have maybe your notes and the questions that you're going to be asking. But you potentially could be at an open house and could have to jump into that right away. It could be via email. You might have some questions that you're going to ask them via email. Or actually, again, like open house, it could be when you're on opportunity time. It could, and also it could happen in multiple phases. Maybe you're at the open house, or maybe it's on opportunity time, and you set up a phone appointment with them and say, can I call you at 5 this evening? I have a few questions that are going to help me prepare to meet with you to talk about how we're going to market your home. So there could be multiple phases of how that seller interview is conducted. So first of all, one of the first things you're going to do in the seller interview is build the rapport. I know Stacy talked about this as well, and we talked about Ford. Use Ford. What is Ford? That's when we're talking about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. When we talk about those things with somebody, that is helping us build that rapport with that seller. So maybe you're at that open house, the neighbor from down the street walks into your open house and you start talking with them. You want them to first feel comfortable with you. So you might say, well, tell me a little bit about what you're planning to do once you sell your house, you know, anything like that. Maybe it's a friend that you're talking to that wants you to come over and look at the house. But why don't you, before you jump into that, build the rapport, even though they're a friend, say, hey, how did you get your daughter to college this week? I know a lot of the kids are going back to school this week. Maybe you're asking, I saw on Facebook that you changed jobs, or I saw on LinkedIn that you changed jobs. Maybe they came back from a vacation, which is probably unlikely right now, but you know, I'm on a vacation. So just ask them, you know, start with that. Once you've started building that rapport, it makes it more natural for you to ask them about their expectations, and then, you know, kind of bring in through that, what would they like to learn from you at the listing presentation? What would they like to learn from you today? So that's what we're going to build the rapport first with that seller interview. Next, we want to find out about the property. And this is really an interesting thing to go through, an interesting exercise when you're talking to a seller about the property, because it's during that time you're going to pick up the clues about how they feel about their home. And, you know, sometimes you might meet a seller who is very detached from their home. Maybe they haven't lived there very long. They were, you know, transferred here for a job, and now they're getting transferred out again, and they didn't raise their family in the home. So maybe there's more of a detachment to it. And they're like, just get me the best price for the amount of money. Then there might be that person that is raised their family in the home. They've been there 35 years or more. So there's going to be a lot more emotion involved. So listening in to them during this time period, and this is one of the most important things during a listing presentation or a seller interview, is that you are listening. Don't be the person that talks too much and they don't get a chance to really explain to you what they desire. So first of all, ask them to describe their house, and pay attention to the adjectives they use. Again, you're picking up on clues on what kind of emotion they have in that house. So pay attention to their adjectives. Write those adjectives down as you're talking with them. Those will be key adjectives that you might use when you start to describe the property, when you put it into the multiple listing service. Or you're putting together your marketing materials. Pay attention to the adjectives they're using, because that will help you as you go to market it. Again, how long have they lived in the home? This is a big clue. As I just said, if they've been there a long time, you want to find out how long they've been there. It's going to give you a clue of how attached they are to the home. This is a great question to ask them. What attracted you when you bought it? Again, their description of this might be a clue for you as you think about how you're going to market the home. What was the most attractive feature to that seller when they were the buyers of that home? Was it the backyard? Was it, you know, that it had a stone fireplace and it was wood burning? Find out what was the most attractive thing for them when they bought the home. Another key question, again, along with the attraction that brought them to that home and why they bought it, what do they like most about the home? Find out what they, you know, besides just the most attractive feature, what's their favorite feature in the whole house? What do they like the most about it? And what do they like the least about it? You know, and during this time, take lots of notes. I will tell you, you know, if you ask me that question, what do I like most about my home? I would probably say it is my back patio and the coziness of my home. What do I like least? It has no closet space. So, you know, you're taking notes through this whole thing. But one of the things I'm going to tell you why you're taking notes through this seller interview is it's always going to help you too later on when you're negotiating. They get an offer on the house or whatever, and you're going to remind them of some of the things that they brought up, and it's going to help you with the negotiations as well. Finally, ask them, and this is really important, and I'm going to go off subject a little bit from the seller interview. Ask them about their major improvements. This is going to help you price the home. So you want to know, when did they do that improvement? You know, if you've got somebody that's lived in the house since, you know, 1985, and they tell you, well, we put in a new kitchen when we moved in. Well, okay, that's great, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that you put a 1985 home, kitchen in this home when you moved into it. It's not going to necessarily bring you back the, you know, $30,000 or the $20,000 you put into that kitchen when you did that improvement. So find out what improvements they did. When was a new roof put on? When was the kitchen redone? Find out the approximate month and year that they did it, and how much they spent on it. And one of the things that I'm going to tell you when you're trying to come up with a price on the property, I'm going to give you a resource to go to. You can access this from Yes MLS, or you can go directly to this URL, but it's Realtor Property Resources is the name of the resource I'm going to give to you, and the URL for that is narrpr.com. Hold on, I'm going to double check that. Let's stop my share for a second and go to Google. And I'm going to go ahead, NARRPR. And I'll demonstrate this for you real quick. So if you come here, this is a great place where you can research properties as you're trying to come up with a pricing on them. Make sure you're defaulted to the all properties right here. As you put in that address, it will pull up any property across this country, basically, and give you information about that. And from here, you can refine the value by going in here and putting in improvements and the amount that they put in, and it will do a calculation for you to tell you what that improvement is worth in today's market. So it's really great. If you see up here on the right, I'm circling around, there's a little cap and gown, or just a cap, I guess, not the gown. There's a little cap. This is a great learning center, so you can teach yourself this program if you go to that. All right, I'm going to go out of this again.
Hey, Michelle, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about improvements, how far do we go back? So like you had mentioned, you know, someone who's been in the house 35 years, they redid their kitchen within the first couple of years they lived there. But how far do we go back? Like, is it 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 10?
I wouldn't limit it to any time period. I think if you're going to use that tool that I just showed you, that would be a good way for you to demonstrate that their 1985 kitchen isn't going to bring them, you know, every dollar that they want out of it. So it might be a nice demonstration of that. But, you know, again, during this seller interview, it's unlike the property disclosures or whatever. We just want to find out the emotion that this seller has in that home, and letting them talk about it. So you're making the notes and they're saying, hey, we did it in 1985. And you're just making the notes and saying, well, that's great. We can discuss that later. But it's just let them tell you what they've done, because they're proud to brag about it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Do you need to see verification of home improvements? Let's say a seller tells you, we had the roof redone in 2017 and it really was 2010. So before you advertise that, should you verify the actual dates of home improvements?
I think for when you're doing your MLS input sheet, you might want to have some verification during this point of the seller interview before you even sat down with them. I wouldn't necessarily challenge them on, you know, dates or anything at that time, you know, because we haven't even, at this point, we haven't even stepped in the property yet. So we're just kind of finding out from them what information about the house from them. Now, once you go and you're doing your listing presentation and you're touring the property, you might, you know, have some red flags going off and saying, that doesn't look like a, you know, that doesn't look like a kitchen that was redone in 2017, or, you know, maybe the appliances are older, and maybe we'll just say, let's verify the dates at that time, but not at this point. This point, we're listening and we're learning, and we're picking up clues from the seller. Does that make sense? All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, we continue talking about the property, and these are getting into what I like to call kind of the zinger questions as you're talking about the property with them. Again, you've asked them about the major improvements. You've asked them what they like most, what they like least. You've asked them what attracted them to the home when they bought it. Now, here's a great question for them, because everybody thinks their house is perfect. And you want to say to them, you know, Mr. Seller, let me ask you a question. If you were to stay here another 5 years, is there anything that you would change to the home to make it, you know, more livable for you for the next 5 years? So let them answer that question. They might say, yeah, if I would stay here, you know, I know the windows are older. I probably would replace the windows, you know. So ask that zinger question. What would you do if you were to stay here another 5 years? And see what they have to say. They might give you a clue and say, no, it's perfect. I wouldn't do anything. Everything's perfect. And you do meet those sellers sometimes that did nothing to their house the whole time they lived there. Another zinger question that I like to use a lot is, okay, seller, let's look at this house. Let's use our buyer's eyes on this house. And if we use our buyer's eyes, you know, you're out looking for homes currently because, you know, we're trying to sell your home and you want to buy a home, and we're out looking for homes. And let's talk about your buyer's eyes. What are you looking for when you go into a home? So let's talk about your home. And you were walking in here and you're the buyers. How would you rate the current condition of this home? On a scale of 1 to 10, why don't you tell me what you would rate this home for? And again, picking up clues about this seller at the moment of how realistic they maybe are about the property. Because if they tell you, well, this is a 10, you know there's no house that's a 10. You know, and if they tell you, you know, 7, 8, and, you know, it's just giving you some clues. But when they give you that answer, and it's, let's say they say it's a 6, and you would say to them, well, okay, a 6, all right, well, why don't you tell me why it's a 6 and what do you think it would take for it to become a 10? And again, they're going to give you some ideas of this home, what it needs to help you when you go to price the home and talk to them about their home. And then finally, of course, ask them, you know, do you have any idea what your home is worth and how did you arrive at that? And maybe they went on Zillow and saw this estimate. Maybe they actually came to you because they went to your buy side home valuation. You know, maybe they've come up with this idea of how the home's worth from one of these valuation models. Or maybe it's just because the neighbor sold next door, and even though it has one more bathroom and it's in better condition, well, if he can get, you know, $350 for his house, I know I can get $350 for my house. So, you know, find out how they arrived at that. Sometimes they won't tell you. Sometimes they want to put you on the spot, but, you know, ask the question, do you have any idea what your home is worth? And how did you arrive at that number? Okay. Now we want to find out more about, again, you know, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but we have not gone to their home yet. This is pretty much probably all being done on the phone. Maybe one of the first times you've ever spoken with this seller. So you're trying to get this insight. And another way to find out their insight is, let's talk about what are their reasons for moving. You know, where are they moving and why? We may already know. Maybe we're already working with them as a buyer, but, you know, as we find out, what are your reasons for moving? It might be that they're right sizing. It might be that the kids have all gone off to, you know, and they're living their own lives and we're empty nesters and we don't need this big house. It could be that they're moving out of state. They want to get, you know, whatever it might be, find out where and what is their why for moving. Maybe it's, you know, a divorce or a marriage or a baby. Any of those things are their reasons for moving. Then you want to ask them too, how long have you been thinking about selling? You know, maybe it is the empty nesters and they've been thinking about this for the past few years, that they're like, yep, as soon as the last one flies the coop, we're out of here. So think about how long have they been thinking about it, and why are they deciding to move now? What made this is the catalyst that it's time to do it? And again, it could be because the interest rates are so low. You know, there's lots of reasons why right now someone might want to move. What are their plans after the house sells? Again, do they need to find a house? Are they moving out of the city? Are they moving out of the state, out of the country, whatever? What are their plans after the house sells? What are their feelings about moving? And this is a big one. I think this is really important because there could be a lot of feelings about this move. I mentioned the people that maybe raised their whole family in the home, and their feelings about this move could be really sentimental to them. It could be that you're a trailing spouse and you don't want to leave your family and friends behind, and you're really upset about this move, or the kids are really upset about this move. You know, so there could be a lot of feelings, or it could be a joyous feeling. They're finally buying their retirement home in South Carolina and they're super excited about it. So, you know, zoning in and helping you have that insight of what their feelings are is really important and gives you their why. And then also ask them, what is the biggest benefit of you moving right now? And what's the drawback of moving right now? So that again gives you the why that you would want to have as you are, you know, trying to find out more about the seller. Okay, so we went through, you know, we built our rapport with them. We talked about the property with them. We found out their reasons for moving. Now we want to see what's their urgency. Again, this is going to help you with your own insight in how you're going to price the property, and how you're going to actually build that rapport with the seller, because they might not be that urgent to go. It might be that, you know, I know somebody that's working with a trailing spouse and kids, and the husband's already moved out of state. And the wife knows she wants to be with her husband and the kids want to be with their dad. However, she really doesn't want to move. So every time the agent tries to call to make an appointment to see the home, she's making up an excuse that it can't be seen at that time. So she's turning down showings. And so if you have a seller that doesn't have a lot of urgency, you might encounter that, where they're blocking you almost from getting the home sold. Maybe their timeline is, you know, very fast. And that, again, when I said it's going to help you price that home, is when you find out that they are very motivated. They need to be out of state by the end of the month, and the kids need to be enrolled in school. You know, there is a lot of urgency in that time frame, and therefore you're going to want to have a conversation with them when it's time for the presentation and talking about the pricing positioning, that you want to price it so it's aggressive and ready to go. So finding out that urgency, what's their timeline to be settled? Have they found a new home yet? As most of us know, in today's current market situation, where houses are going on under, you know, multiple offer situations over and over and over again, that there could be that they don't have a new home to move to. So that could change their urgency on getting their home sold. Are they working with a realtor? That's always a good kind of idea to find out. I'm going to pause here for a minute because I'm getting a lot of questions. So let's take a look at the chat here.
Those are chats for people to tell me they're still there, Michelle.
Okay, gotcha.
I need to take attendance for the state.
Okay, just want to make sure I wasn't missing any questions.
There might have been one, there was one question, I'm not sure when this was. Sonia asked around 120, can sellers access this site on their own if they know about it? I'm not sure what.
Oh, no, that would have been for RPR. And no, that is because that is actually a tool that is offered to us from the National Association of Realtors. And so you have to be a realtor in order to access that. So they would not see that. You can do reports from it, but yes, you have to be a realtor in order to be able to go to RPR. And when the first time you go on there, just a heads up, you're going to have to know your NRDS number, otherwise known as the NERDS number. That is your number that would have come to you on your realtor card when you got it, or it's on the magazine when you get your realtor magazine. But it is very easy to look up as well when you try to find it. So, all right, want to find out if they're working with a realtor. What if this house doesn't sell? What's their plan? I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you know, it's a good market out there right now, but I'm looking at this and, you know, we're talking about this. I need to know what's going to happen if the house doesn't sell. I mean, are you in a situation where you're going to have 2 mortgages, you know, or, you know, your husband's in Alabama and you're in Indiana, you know, or Ohio, what are you going to do if it doesn't sell? So, and then another question is, what if it sells faster than you thought and planned, or slower than you planned? So what's going to happen there? I mean, what if they don't have that house to go to and they put their house on and it goes into multiple offers right away? What are they going to do if they get that offer day 1? Are they prepared for that? So have that conversation with them during the seller interview. This is important because right now while we're doing this, we're learning about them, but we're also counseling them. We're counseling them as to what can happen in a real estate transaction. So it's really important to ask that and find out their urgency and what their plans are. Okay, so I love talking about their previous experience because this really will give you a lot of ideas of how they might react with you. If they've, how many homes have they owned? If they're if they have been in the house for 35, 40 years, they don't know how to do a real estate transaction. So it's really important for you as the realtor to make note of that. And as you go through this process, you want to make sure you're explaining everything to them. How is showing on showing time is going to happen? Because guess what? The last time they were out looking for a home, they didn't have any automatic showing time, calling them to set up an appointment to see the home. So, find out what their experience is. How many homes have they owned? You could be dealing with somebody that basically moves across the country every few years and goes through these kind of things a lot. And then finding out, have they worked with an agent before? Again, it gives you an idea of what their experience is. If they've gone through a lot of different experiences with agents, guess what they're going to do to you? They're going to compare you. They're going to either compare you in a good way or a bad way to some previous experience they had. And it could be with an agent from another state, and they'll say, well, that's not the way my agent in Colorado told me to do it. Well, it's different. So this is going to give you some insight of what you need to know about their previous experience. Going back to how long have you lived in this home? It's very similar to how many homes have you owned, and tell me about your previous experiences. Maybe they had a really great previous experience, and you want to hear about that previous experience and why it made it so great for them. And because that that's something you're going to have to kind of focus on, and so you can give them a continued great experience in working with a realtor and selling their home or buying their home.
Michelle,
Maybe their previous experience was terrible. I'm sorry, what?
You got some questions.
Okay.
I see about asking what if the house doesn't sell, how to put that so it doesn't sound like you're predicting. Do you see these questions that just came in, the 3 that just came in?
Let me look at it real quick. Michelle, how about asking, what if this house doesn't sell, how to put that so it doesn't sound like you're predicting failure? Well, that's a great question, Nan. Let me think about that. And so I think that as you're speaking with the seller, just say, I try to be as transparent as possible and counsel you in all aspects of what could happen. So nothing is going to take you by surprise, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So as I'm asking you these questions, I don't see us having that situation happen here, but I do want to ask it, if it were to occur, what would you do if we didn't get this house sold in the time frame that you need it sold? Would you want to continue marketing it? Would you want to take it off the market? But all I'm doing right now with you as the sellers is making sure that we are covering all aspects of what potentially could happen, but I have no anticipation we're going to be actually experiencing that. And I say that a lot of times, even when we're talking about the listing dates, because we want to do a 1-year, listing agreement. And, they look at me like, well, if you don't have this thing sold in a year, and I said, I do not anticipate us having that problem, especially in today's market. But does that sound like, Lucia, if you have anything you want to add to that, feel free. Or anybody experienced on the, did that make sense, Nan? Did I answer that okay? All right, I'm going to go on. All right, again, okay, so we've gone through, we've said this.
I just wanted to respond.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nan.
No, sorry, I couldn't get my thing unmuted, but
That's
it did
okay.
make perfect sense. And I also wanted to just ask as a follow-up, might it be a good opportunity to sort of just lay some groundwork for maybe, if you need to in the future, a price drop, like just sort of saying like, at this price, if it doesn't sell at this price.
Nan, that, definitely, it would be a good point to maybe start that conversation with them, because you're going to get we really haven't gotten to pricing during this seller interview, but it is definitely going to lay great groundwork for you for when you do go into that listing presentation with them and you start having the pricing discussion with them, that you've already set that groundwork. And you might even refer to it. You might say, okay, let's talk about the pricing. So when we talked on the phone earlier this week, you mentioned that you need to move pretty quickly. And we talked a little bit about, what would we do if the house didn't sell in your time frame. So let's have that discussion right now, because I know you said that you want to sell it and you won't take a penny less than 350. Well, let's lay that groundwork right now for where the market is and how we're going to make sure that you're going to get that in the shortest amount of time. So you're referring back to this interview. I mentioned that earlier in this. It's always great to kind of make those notes and refer back to it. And even if you have notes with you and you're in that interview and you're like, okay, let's just take a look. I want to make sure I've covered all the points we talked about in our conversation earlier this week. And make those notes and show that you really paid attention to what they said. But it does, back to you, Nan, it does make some great groundwork for that.
Great, thanks.
Sure, thanks. Okay, so this kind of goes along with that, and the expectations. And, not only are we trying to set the expectations for them on what to anticipate through the process of selling their home, but we also want to find out from them, what are their expectations about us? You might get that realtor that seller that expects to hear from you every single Monday, whether there's anything to report or not, or they want to hear from you after every showing, whatever it might be. You want to make sure that you are getting their expectations of you right there from the ground running. You want to know. You might ask them, what's your ideal situation? And if in this scenario of selling your home, what do you expect? It might be, well, you know what? Kate, I expect you to have this, basically sold for me by next week. So it's giving you insight into that expectation of what they have for you. And, because if you don't meet that expectation, that's when you start getting the seller that's not happy with you. So make sure you know what that is. Ask them how they heard about the company. Ask them how they heard about you. Those are, again, kind of giving you an idea of the expectations. Maybe they heard about you because they knew that their neighbor down the street used you and they raved about you. So now they have that expectation that you did such a great job for them, and that's how I know about you. And maybe it's the company. Well, I picked Howard Hanna because you guys sell the most houses. Again, that's a pretty high expectation, and it's one that is true, but it is a high expectation. Okay, Kate, are you ready? How are we on time? We're good. Kate, are you there? All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop my share. And this is really fun. So normally we would do this little game of where we're going to ask you guys questions. These are seller questions that you might have to think on your feet that they might ask you. It might be during the seller interview. It might be it might not happen until you're at the home, but these are really great questions that you're going to have to think on your feet that are very common to be asked. So normally the way we do this when we're doing this not virtually is we have two balls. One says agent on it, one says seller on it, and we toss the balls out into the classroom, and one of you catches it, and the person that catches the seller ball asks the question. The person that catches the agent ball has to answer the question. But today, because we can't throw those balls around, we're going to actually make all of you agents, and I get to be the seller. So with that said, first, before we just start picking on people, is there anybody that wants to be my first agent that takes the first question? Any volunteers out there?
This is like the,
All right, Adam.
yeah, I was like, I know there's gonna be someone. This is a good group. I was just waiting.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hi. I have to warn you, my kids are pretty noisy today.
Oh, that's okay. All right, first question. By the way, I'm using the ice bucket in the room. After we're done, I'm probably going to put ice in it. Okay, so Adam, I want to know how many open houses will you have on my home, and how are you going to advertise them?
I'm going to advertise those open houses both to the public and also to our other agents, and I'm going to have those events be separate so that you have agents coming in who might have buyers, as well as, if you're okay with it, an open house to the public with all of the virtual things that we can do. And I'm only going to have as many as are necessary to sell your home at the price you need. So I'm not planning on flooding your house with open houses.
That's a great answer. Does anybody want to add to that? I thought that was a great answer, Adam.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any ideas on that? What he just did was he set the stage for that sellers. No, don't expect me to be there every Sunday, or every Saturday and Sunday. That, we're going to do it, and you're going to be strategic about it, and it's going to be as often as it seems to be needed to get the property marketed. So that was a good answer. Anybody else? All right, who's up next? Oh,
I'll go next.
all right. Hi, Dawn.
Hi,
What office are you in, Dawn?
I'm in Brecksville.
Oh, you're with Lucia. All right.
I am.
That's awesome.
Don't dig too deep. I'm nervous.
Okay, I'll try to be gentle with you.
Thanks.
All right. Dawn, I was just wondering, how often do you plan on contacting me?
I would like to touch base with you at least once a week. And you can choose if you would prefer that to be by text, phone, or email, but you could expect at least one phone call from me on a regular.
I like that. Great answer. Again, goes back to that seller interview part about the expectations and, finding out, and I'm glad you brought that up, finding out how they want to be contacted and have contact with you. But you at some point probably wanted to know how often. So, but I do like the fact that you said you can at least know that at least once a week. And I think even if the seller tells you they don't want to hear from you all the time, doing that touch base once a week, even if it's just a quick text, is really important, because as a manager, I can tell you most often when I hear a complaint from a seller is that they never hear from their agent.
Michelle, you took my thunder. I was going to say to everyone, so I actually teach a CE class on the new consumer, and I basically read the NAR report and I make it fun for you all so you don't have to read it. And the biggest complaint 3 years in a row is lack of communication.
Yep.
From buyers and sellers. They say lack of communication is the #1 thing that they wish that their agent was better at. Also a reason why they probably don't go back with that agent, even if they like them, because they forgot their name, because they just stopped talking to them at the end of the transaction. So you always want to be in contact with those people.
Yep.
Michelle, can I ask a question real quick?
Of course. Hi, Randy.
Yeah. So on the other spectrum of things, if you have a buyer, like for me, I'm one of those people that I tend to over communicate. I'll be sending 5 emails a day, 2 text messages, you name it. So my bigger concern is over communicating to a point where they're going to be like, just give me a day or leave me alone. Where do you feel that threshold really lies? I know it's going to change for each client, but
Yeah.
where do you recommend it kind of just for a starting off period when you're just getting to kind of know someone?
Yeah. And it really is a different animal altogether when it comes to that buyer as opposed to the seller, because the seller, you've got his house listed and they want it sold and they need to hear from you. With the buyer, it can be a little trickier, especially if it's somebody that you met maybe at an open house, and you don't want to be bugging them. I would say it will differ with the personality of the person you're dealing with, but I would just make sure that they know that you are going to check in with them on occasion, that you're putting them up on a property alert for their criteria that they're looking at, and all you ask is just say, listen, tell me how often you want to hear from me. I want you to understand that when I am going to call you or text you, most often it's because I know of something that might be coming to market that you haven't seen yet. And so giving them that little hook to know that they need you. There's a reason why they need you, is because they all think that they can go look on Zillow and they're going to see the houses. Well, we know in today's climate of a market, most of the time, by the time that person went to Zillow and tried to make an appointment for that home, it's already been sold. So give that little hook and say, working with me as your buyer's agent is a very much an advantage to you, because I go to my Tuesday sales meetings and I reach out to my colleagues all the time to find out what's coming to the market so that I can get you in. So just kind of putting that hook, but yeah, do have the conversation even with the buyer of how they expect to hear from you and how often do they want to hear from you, and then just check in on occasion. Watch, if they're on Real Scout, you can watch their habits and hopefully see that they're, what they're looking at, and maybe then you contact them and say, hey, I noticed that you put, 123 Main Street into favorites. You want to go see that this afternoon?
Okay.
Question.
Thank you.
Would we not have some automatic communication far as, as a showing that occurred, and then we get kind of send them back the feedback from that showing?
Yes. Yes, on the showing, the feedback, it does automatically come back, that feedback does. I do often, though, I know there are sellers also that still want to hear from you, even though they saw the feedback from the showing, they still want to hear from you afterwards and just say, and again, that's setting that expectation from the seller in the beginning. Them telling you, look, I want to hear from you every time we have a showing, because I want you to reach out to the agent and have a conversation with them to get better insight. Or maybe you were at the showing. A lot of sellers wanted to be listed to a company, so maybe you were there and you could give even your own feedback of how you thought the showing went. All right. Okay. Who's my next volunteer? Anybody?
Okay, Michelle, I'll go.
All right, Newt. Yay. Dawn, you did a great job, by the way. All right. You're welcome. This is pretty easy, Newt. I'm not giving you that one.
Okay, don't give me that one.
Oh, this is good. Because this is really pertinent for all of you and how you're going to think about how you're going to answer this question. Newt, how much experience have you had in real estate?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I've been licensed for just a little over 3 years, but I've been active in the real estate markets for the last 40 years in my other profession, which you probably know me from. And it's a passion I have, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that passion with you, either whether you're in selling your house and getting the best price for it.
Great answer. I love that. I mean, I thought that was outstanding. So now Newt has a little bit different situation than some of you. Some of you are brand new to this and aren't 3 years into it. So does anybody else want to answer that question before we start?
I can answer that. I'm brand new to this.
Okay.
So I would say, like, I am new to real estate, but I was a flight attendant for 7 years. So I'm definitely used to customer service and listening to what people need and want to have the best experience.
That's, I'm so glad you said it like that. And I love what you said. Both of you brought up previous experiences in life that you've had, because just because you're new to real estate, it doesn't mean that you don't know how to negotiate or work with people or market or whatever it might be. I love, Newt, that you brought up the passion. For you, Lillian, your experience in the customer service business, and that kind of service business gives you a lot. So always use anything in your past that I remember when I was a new agent and I was up against a very experienced agent for a listing. And that experienced agent used my newness against me. And the seller brought that up to me, and I said, I appreciate what you're saying. However, please know that I wasn't dropped onto the planet the day that I decided to get my real estate license. I come with previous experience in the business world where I did this kind of stuff. So take whatever your previous experience is and use that to your advantage. And then also any previous experience that you've had as you bought your own home or you sold a home. That's previous experience that you had as well. So use that anytime to your advantage. Lillian, what airline are you with?
I'm with United. I'm based out of Cleveland.
Oh, so were you on Express Jets or?
No, I'm with the main line, but we're probably going to get furloughed in October. So I figured I'd have a backup plan.
Yeah, I hear you. My husband actually flies for United. So he's based out of Newark, though.
Oh, is he a pilot or a flight attendant?
He's a pilot. Yeah, he's a pilot.
Oh, I might have flown with him. I used to pick up out of Newark a lot.
Oh, might have.
Yeah, it's a small world.
And he has his real estate license too. So.
Oh, that's funny. It is a small world.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
My husband is also a pilot. I just had to say, that's crazy.
That is crazy. How funny. Yeah, that's great. What airline? I'm sorry, we're taking up all the time, but.
Oh no, he flies private now, but he did fly for United before for 4 years.
Small world.
Yep.
All right, who's my next volunteer?
I can go
Oh, great. Thanks, Jen.
now that I'm here.
Okay, so this one I think is going to be fairly easy because you might have something that helps you answer this. Jen, how many buyers do you have for my house?
Oh my God, you just caught me off guard. Oh, sorry. Okay, retreating my thought. Well, I don't want to say what I was just going to say. I have a system that I get, the advanced notification system, or we send out an advanced notification system through our agency, and I am able to notify all the agents in the area of your home as soon as it lists. So we are able to get buyers, hopefully for your home, before we are even putting it into the MLS, and then we can go from there. Sorry, I just got really.
No, that's
I am
good.
not good
That's
on the
true.
spot.
That's true. That's our Hannah match, and that's
Yes.
that's definitely something that you would want to use as you're going into a listing appointment or even talking to the seller. Is that you already know that there are buyers out there looking for a house that is like that house. So Hannah Match does that. Who wants to answer?
Buy-side.
What?
Buy-side.
Yep.
Buy side.
Buy side is the other one. So,
Buy-side, 100. I mean, obviously, I know all the tech stuff, but if someone says, "Well, how many buyers do you have for my home?" Use the Howard Hanna network to get that listing. Like, I mean, there's no, if someone is interviewing a Howard Hanna agent and another brokerage, they should always go with Howard Hanna because we have the market share. We have access to all of those buyers. We can get that information. We can start marketing their home immediately. And if you go into pull the BMA and buy side, which I had mentioned, that's actually going to give you a number, and it's going to say like 300 people or 300 buyers. But don't just say buyers. Say these are 300 Howard Hanna buyers that already have an agent. They've been vetted. They've gone through this process. We know they're pre-approved. These are like real buyers that I can email right now. You sign this listing agreement, and I'll get that. I'll get this out there. I will sell your house. So if they say, how many buyers do you have? Just turn it around to the company. Like you have access to the biggest market share in Ohio and to all of those buyers, and you can actually give them a number. Use buy side, use Market 360. Hannah Match is good because it pulls from howardhanna.com, but they will go into buy side as well.
Yeah.
So just think of those little scripts.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Kate. All right. How's our time, Kate? How many more questions do you think?
Oh, keep going. This is great. I think this is good. I think this is probably really beneficial. Yes, guys? 2 more maybe? Yeah, they like it.
Okay. Who's my volunteer this time?
I'll go.
All right. Who do I have? Virgil. I don't like that. Sorry, Virgil.
You trying to set me up?
Yes. Oh, that's the one I didn't like. I had 2 of those. Okay. Oh, this one's good. Virgil.
Yeah.
Why won't you cut your commission? Another person I talked to said they would.
Well, why won't I cut my commission? I don't know.
It's a tough one. You got the toughest question of the day.
This is the toughest question of the day. I wanted the toughest question. This is the toughest question. All right, so ask me that again. You're the seller, right? You're asking me.
I'm the seller, and Virgil, maybe I've already said, are you going to cut your commission? You said, no, I'm not. So I want to say, why won't you cut your commission, Virgil?
Well, I mean, for the service and times that we provide for you, other agents may want to cut their commission because they can't offer you what I can offer you.
Very good. Very, very good.
So you want to put this pen to paper?
That's perfect. The closing.
Always be closing.
There are a lot of coaches out there that basically tell you, yeah, I just won't cut my commission. And you just zip your mouth, just don't even say anything afterwards. Because
You give people a reason to buy, they'll buy. So, but I did have a question for you though, and I don't want to forget. At what point in the seller interview, can't that be an opportunity to represent them when they're going to their next move?
Yes, absolutely. You want to kind of, through that seller interview, you want to be setting that up as well.
Right. Okay, that's all I
Yeah,
want.
yeah. So yes, I liked your answer. I really did on the how, why you won't cut your commission. I saw a couple people flash up, saying that, you pay for what you get type of response. And that's so true that you do, you don't go to the Ritz-Carlton and think that you're going to pay a Holiday Inn price. There's a difference with our services that we offer, how we get it sold. I just showed you, Mr. Seller, how many buyers are working with Howard Hanna buyers presently. So somebody just took the screen.
I did. I wanted to show them this when you were done.
Oh yeah, there you go.
If you have Publisher on your home computer, you should go to GoHanna and download this. If you don't, go to the office and download it. But this is why Howard Hanna. This is every check mark right there is exactly what they're getting. This is an old one, actually. You need to find the one that says Real Scout here. But this is this just says, oh, you want to know what you're paying for? Yeah, you can go with Howard Hanna and get all of this, or you can go with another full service brokerage and not get any of it. So this is a great talking piece. It's called, on GoHanna, it's called Howard Hanna Real Estate Services Flyer.
Okay, could this be a page in your listing presentation?
Yes, that is exactly where it would go. So you would want to download it. So if you don't have Publisher, go to an office computer, put your face and information in there, save it as a PDF, and add it to your listing presentation 100%.
Okay.
Actually,
So
I would just print that out as a one-pager for any open house you have to pull some buyers or maybe people that are shopping for a listing agent.
And Michelle.
Amy, I'll put it in the chat.
all right, so it's not already a page that you can add.
I'll show up. Yeah, I'm going to write it in the chat, and I'll show that when I teach a class again at some point, I think. So I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Kate or Michelle. Okay, so obviously, I mean, I don't know, maybe not everybody on here is a new agent. I don't know. But I know that one of my, I guess, fears right now is like trying to get a seller to believe or want such a new agent, like a first timer here, to be able to like sell their house. Like, what kind of things are you supposed to, I mean, I get it, all the things that Howard Hanna offers and stuff, but me specifically, not have sold any houses before, what are the kind of things that you would say to a seller that would make them want to list with you, even though you've never actually done it before?
Well, first of all, you've got the team behind you. You have, your manager is there to take you through that process. As a matter of fact, Tim and I are going through this right now. Tim just went on a listing presentation with somebody that he knows, and I went with him. And, so gaining that confidence of that seller by knowing that you have somebody behind you that's supporting you and basically aiding you through this, that they're not alone and you're not alone, and there's always going to be that backup. And whether it's your manager, whether it's Kate, or anybody else that you can think of, or your regional, we're all here to back you. So use that team mindset that just say, I am part of that team, and I've got a team behind me that's going to make sure. I've got my admins that are there to help me, get it into the MLS. So you're there. And then, of course, the age-old thing that most new real estate agents can use is just say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, please understand that you are my one priority. You're number one for me. And what I do and what service I provide to you is so important to me, because I want you to be my first backer, the person that gives me accolades so that I can continue to grow this business that I, as Newt said, have a lot of passion for. So, please know that you're my number one priority, and I will do nothing but focus on getting your house sold at the price that you need it to sell it as quick as possible. So
I have a question. I think it's also important. Oh, I'm sorry. Me? I was just going to add to what you say. I think it's also important to focus on the skills you had before you became a realtor and pick one of those unique qualities. But also, one of the things that I think in any field when you are brand new is that you can focus on the fact that you are trained with the newest of technology and that you have this freshness about you and that you are up to date on everything.
That is absolutely true, Jennifer. I appreciate you bringing that up because that is true. You guys know more about all the tools and all the stuff that you can do to market at home more than any of the agents that are out there. They're too busy. They're not focused on the stuff. So that is a great point, Jennifer. Thank you. Tina.
Never mind.
So just want to ask you, have you ever run into an awkward situation with the seller after you got the listing? It's been like 2 months and, you know, nobody's putting an offer on the house. Do you just have the courage to talk to your seller, say, hey, you know, based on what's out there and our house is not moving, we don't have any offers. Let's talk about some optional plans, you know? So if seller's not willing to reduce the price because they think they put so much money in there, and also they don't want to rent it out because they probably just had a brand new floor put in and the tenant gonna trash it after 2 years and it's really hard to sell at that point. So do you have any advice on how would we gonna approach seller when?
So yes, that is a situation that happens often. Yeah, you definitely want to maybe, first of all, during that seller interview, as I told you, take those notes. So it's so important that you talk about these things and set that expectation in the beginning. Then when you're at the listing presentation and you start talking about the pricing, I would go from that moment on, I would say, let's have a plan, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so that it's not out of the blue 2 months down. Say, you know, here's our expectation. Here's how the market works and what our strategies are. We generally say in this business that if you've had 10 showings and no offers, or you've been on for 21 days, 14 to 21 days, then we are actually getting rejected by the market. And please understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's the buyer that determines what market value is, not what you put into your home. That doesn't determine the value of the home. The value of the home is determined by the market. And we are getting market rejected right now because we've been on for almost a month and nobody's come and written an offer or nobody's said. So before you get there, set that expectation at the listing presentation and the pricing positioning and say, if we get to 21 days or 10 showings and we don't have any interest, are we prepared to take a blank % of a price repositioning so that we can meet the market? And you know, anybody that wants to jump in, Lucia or Fran, if you have any, I see you, Fran, you're on. If you have any thing you want to add and how you kind of set that up. But I always say, talk about it at the beginning. And usually it's the seller that makes that initial price. You've given your recommendations, but usually the sellers that says, I want to be at 300,000.
Yeah.
I set it up at that point and say, okay, let's test the market right now at 300,000, but let's have a plan that 2 weeks from now, if we don't have an offer, we're going to go to 285 or 260.
Michelle, I think you're so right. Like I was over here going, I think a couple things. First of all, you have to make sure that when you go in with a price, you're going in with a range. You are not going in with a price. You have shot yourself in the foot if you go in with a hard price. You set it up from the beginning. So you have that range. You know that you want to be on the lower end, but you're letting them test the market on the higher end, but agreeing that, like she said, 10 days and do you do the 10 showings in 21 days? Is that what you said, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what Ernie was using too, which is great. But we've been using that for 15 years, the 10 showings. So, I mean, it absolutely is true. And then you can go back and say, we've talked about this, we're at this point. I know that I'm telling you what you don't want to hear, but that's part of my job, you know?
Yep.
And it's okay to be that person. Don't be the yes man. Don't always be the yes man. That's where you get yourself in trouble. There was one other thing that I was like, I don't know, it'll come to me. But you got to set them up from the beginning and you got to keep hammering them for that. In this market, we know if you do not sell in a week, you are overpriced. Bottom line.
Yeah, and you know, the best thing to do is to tell them, you know, we don't set the price and you don't set the price, the market sets the price. And so if the home is not selling, in the first 21 days, then we know that we've set the price too high for the market. So we need to adjust.
Yep.
I know what the other thing was when we were talking about commission and cutting your commission. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if I'm willing to cut my commission that easy, how well do you think I'm going to negotiate the price of your home? Right?
One of my agents always tells clients when they want to cut the commission, well, I understand that that company must know what they're worth.
Yep.
And what if I tell them this in regards to commission, like, you know, quality isn't cheap, and what Howard Henn is offering you, you're getting at a discount anyways.
Right. And I also like to add in, I have worked with new agents and gotten the higher commission when I've said, you know, then one thing I won't be able to offer you is by the money back guarantee. And we never know where our buyers are coming from. So I would never want to eliminate that from
Fran, I'm glad you
our-
brought that up. That is absolutely true. It's a great tool for you to bring up because you've already really, you know, talked up how great the money back guarantee
Right.
is for the seller, and then they want you to cut your commission after you talked about it. Then you say, well, that, you know, I'm going to have to take that away.
I do have a quick question. Go ahead. Sorry, you go ahead. Finish.
Do we ever, you know, you put up the fact that we'll be able to get them a higher price than that extra commission? You know, basically they're selling it on their own, they get less price, and if our agency can do a better job at that.
That's a great way to overcome the FSBO objection, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they don't realize the amount of time and money into marketing and, you know, trying to keep the house clean and preparedness, and even getting a lawyer if they do find someone to like draft a contract, like, you know, a lot of that. Absolutely. I would say, sorry guys, I just chimed in because I want to make sure we get to the actual paperwork of this too. But Blair, I think you're spot on, especially when you have the FSBO seller who is like, well, I don't want to pay commission, I'll just do it myself. And I'm like, do you really know what you're doing yourself? We could probably get you more plus the peace of mind and, you know, for whatever the commission would be at a, you know, your house selling at a higher price. Randy, I know you had a question, and then I'm going to probably have to move questions offline, but go ahead, Randy.
Okay, thank you. So my question was, and we may have discussed this a little bit earlier, but let's say you take on a seller and the seller wants a ridiculously high amount for their home. And you're like, okay, well, we could try it, but, you know, given the market, it might be kind of hard. And they explain something along the lines of, well, I have a loan or something, or the house might need, you know, $20,000 worth of structural work or something. So the value of the home might be significantly less than what he wants. So my question is, how do you work with a seller that significantly wants more, but you know that given the condition of the home, or, you know, just given his financial status, we really can't get that sale done at such a high price?
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I hate buying a listing. And then in some ways, you know, that might be what you're being put into that position where it's like, you really want your first listing, but you know that you're going to be out there and it's not going to sell. So sometimes it might be okay to say, you know, I don't see that the market is is where you want to be or need to be currently with this house. And I don't think, Mr. Seller, that maybe I'm not the right agent for you, because I want to be honest with you. I don't want to put you in a position for failure. I want you to understand, you know, here's the range that I've been recommending. You're really, really trying to go outside of that range where I don't think you're going to see success. So maybe we need to talk about, you know, that, but I'm not the agent that's just going to say yes to you. Fran or Lucia?
I did something I try to get people to when they're really way far out of the ballpark, is to suggest that they have an appraiser come in. And if they chose to have an appraisal and they pay for it, I would take that cost off of my commission. And then when they see that the appraisal is coming in closer to where I am, then they believe us more. And that has worked numerous times.
Yes.
All right, Lucia, I see you breathing. I'm pausing you. All right. I mean, I just want to say, you know, thank you to Michelle. We can talk about the seller interview, questions, all this, but that's not going to help us unless we know how to write the paperwork.
Yes, you got to get to that.
We have to know how to actually.
The boring part.
The right to sell.
Kate, you're right about this group. They're fantastic. So
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
been a
swear I
great-
don't say that every time. I know some people are like, they probably just say that every time to make us feel great. Like I definitely don't. They already heard me complain about the last group.
Yeah, this was a great group. It's been great, guys.
Sorry,
Thank
I feel like I just don't want to let Michelle go before I hit her with the last question, because I picked the hardest listing right now. It's a condo. You know, the condo does not allow me to put a sign on, and they won't allow me to do an open
You know
house.
what office
I
are you?
already
You're in Aurora, right?
Yeah.
You should just bother the crap out of Dottie and tell her to
Yeah.
help you and get that handled, because
Trust me, I did.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm for.
Yeah.
Michelle's on vacation. Let's let her fill the ice bucket with not seller interview questions. Go
Okay.
ahead, Michelle.
Yes, I'm going to. Tina, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Any of you.
Bye, Michelle. Have fun.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I have to stop this recording and get